Dr. Stamper, I am so excited to have you here. Your work, your message, your purpose at this time in this world is so in alignment with our listeners. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Wendy. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, let's start with my big question because sometimes I forget to ask it in my eagerness for conversation. And that is, how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
Oh, so fun. I think backstory really quickly. It's funny
Please.
as women, as we get older, we're kind of to the point of like, it's time to start saying yes to ourselves. So it feels very empowering to be like, this is my chapter. And this is my, if we channel Taylor Swift, this is my era.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Among other things. But so how I am saying yes to myself is I come from a very I would say I used to be, or I'm a recovering people pleaser slash burnout artist slash do all the things type of individual. So I would say yes to a lot of things to people that really was not in alignment to myself, to my business, to my family. And it wasn't until I reached a point of overwhelm, burnout, even more so on the extreme, that I finally was like, I need to start saying yes to myself. So in this
Mm.
time, I am saying yes to myself by doing the things that I want to do, but it's more than just about me. It's more of helping people find their path for that empowerment because I saw what it did to me and the joy it has brought to my life, my friends' lives, my family's life, my kids, husband, all the things. And it's like, I feel like more of that needs to happen for other people and to give them the space and I don't want to say give permission, but almost it's like it's there, it's for you. Let's talk about it and you run with it so you can say yes to yourself in your way because everybody's yes is different.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. Which I love that that's the question that I ask every guest. And of course, there's never the same answer.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah.
It's beautiful. How are you? So, in this invitation to your clients, and sometimes, like you said, you're inviting them or giving them permission to hold space for themselves, to introduce them to agency that they get to make these decisions. How are you finding your clients receptive to that? Because I feel like the conditioning says, well, a yes to myself is a no to everybody else.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, part of in my practice, I incorporate a number of tools to help my clients give them a blueprint, and then we move through and have like a playbook. So that way they can understand more of the energy behind what is in alignment for them, strategy wise, whether that's in their business, their career, family relationships, whatever that may be, but then also the psychology of the why they do what they do. So it's almost like this yes to themselves or this empowerment of, oh, that makes sense why I tend to do XYZ, whether if that's overwork or whatever it may be. It's because of this. So now that I recognize that there's this awareness, I can give myself a little bit of grace rather than most women, we tend to go into guilt mode, but also
Mhm.
depending on, and the tools that I use are human design as well as the Enneagram. So depending on your Enneagram type, it could
Yeah.
be shame, it could be guilt.
Right.
So,
I'm a two.
okay, yes, yes, yes. So we tend to have this guilt type of default mechanism that we might go to. And what's beautiful about it and how I feel like it has clients to where they're more open to it and receptive to it because it gives them this aha moment. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, so it's okay that I react this way.
Mhm.
It makes sense. And then we can come from that space of empowerment to say, okay, this is the why, right? This is the self awareness. Now, how can we take this insight and create action? And that's always the step that sometimes is missing for a lot of people is that we have so much information at our fingertips. And
Right.
so much more. I mean, I remember in the days whenever my parents would have to buy the encyclopedia books, right? And that's how we got
Mhm.
information. We had our little library. We had to go grab our book, and we were very good at our ABCs.
Yeah.
And that's how we got our information for school. Well, now we have it at our fingertips. And with AI,
Mhm.
even more so, again, good and bad of AI, but we can, Google something very quickly and get tons of information. The issue is that we're not masters of the information, and so
Mm.
we need help putting that information into action. So it's like, okay,
Mm.
you're a two. So again, a lot of people's like, well, what does that mean? I'm a helper. Okay, well, sure. Yeah, I like to help people. I put others before myself. And it's like, okay, well, what do I do with that? And so that's really where I help my clients say yes. And I think giving them that blueprint and that pathway. So they're like, okay, that's cool. That makes sense. What's the playbook for that? Now they have a runway to go. And this is the type of actions that I can take that makes sense for me rather than someone who, for example, is a three. They talk about boundaries, especially for twos. Twos need boundaries. So, for your listeners who are not in the Enneagram, 9 different energies. One of those energies is the two, and that's considered what we call the helper. And so, one of the pieces of work that a helper must do is set boundaries for themselves. And the reason why is a two tends to put others before themselves because they're seeking love and validation of themselves through others. But you have a beautiful gift, and that's the beauty of this is that two, their gift in this world is they can anticipate what others need before the other person knows what they need, and that's such a beautiful gift, and it can be their kryptonite. So a boundary for you as a two is vastly different than a boundary for me. I'm a three. And even more so, I'm a self-preservation three. So there's so many layers to this. And so that's why I love doing what I do is helping people demystify who they are
Mhm.
and how to put that into action so they can build that career, but also their life because they're intertwined, right? No matter what.
Oh,
Even,
absolutely.
even if you're a stay-at-home mom, that's still a career.
Yeah, it takes all day long, then yeah,
Exactly.
it's a
Exactly.
career.
So whether if you are a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home father, or you are a business woman, businessman, whatever, the fact of the matter is they intertwine. So how can you build that career and that life that you love? Because when you start loving you and loving what you do, it radiates and it encourages and empowers other people to do the same.
Right.
So that's again, I get very long-winded with my
Oh
stuff.
no, I'm
I'm
here for
very
it. I have
excited.
so many questions as well because I think what you just said is so beautiful, the connection to love and loving what we do and loving who we are requires a level of understanding. And those two tools that you mentioned, the Enneagram and your human design, bring so much awareness and understanding to things that we already know to be true about ourselves, but may have a belief that we're the only one that's
Mhm.
that way and we're somehow not doing it right
Mhm.
because we think we're the only one who, in my, as you mentioned, my superpower and my kryptonite, anticipating the needs of others made me a fantastic wedding planner and an over-functioning wife and mother, right?
Mhm.
Which over-functioners cause regular functioners to be under-functioners because there's not even space for them to get anything done. So I would love for you, if it's in alignment, for you to speak about one of the things that I find so fascinating about the Enneagram is not only does it highlight what your superpowers are, but it does inform you of how, if you are out of alignment, this is how these things can show up for you. So, can you give some examples, maybe just using a two and a three, even though we're close, but you have all of that information of just how a certain thing, a circumstance would come up and how we would be looking at the quote unquote same thing, but not see it the same way.
Absolutely. So, for those of your listeners who are not very familiar with the Enneagram,
Please.
I will not give a full history lesson, but essentially, the Enneagram is a personality system, and it actually dates back. Oh goodness, Buddha, like a number, long, long time ago. It dates more so the MBTI, DISC, big workplace, big five, colors, all those. What the Enneagram does is vastly different than most of your other personality tests is that the Enneagram gets to the why of your behaviors. So
Mm,
picture an iceberg, right? An iceberg, what you see above surface tends to be your outward behaviors. And that's what a lot of most personality tests do. You're an extrovert. We can see
mm,
that type of thing. Whereas the Enneagram says, hey, there's a whole bigger chunk of ice underneath the
yeah.
surface here that informs why we do what we do. So the Enneagram says, hey, well, why are you so caring, right? Whereas
Mhm.
someone, an example, if you, since you were a wedding planner, you might have had a bride that was what we call a bridezilla, right? And you could have taken the bridezilla, what she said about you, to heart, and it really could have taken you in a different direction, because you're like they are questioning my character and so forth, whereas someone who is maybe an 8 on the Enneagram just be like, so what, who cares, bye. And it's
Right.
vastly different. So the Enneagram gets to the why behind what you do, the psychology of it. And there are 9 different energies, is what we call them, or Enneagram numbers. And these are all based upon your defense. It's a blend of nature and nurture. So we hear all the time with
Mhm.
psychology, there's a blend of nature and nurture. You're born with some innate traits. However, you are in some ways shaped nurture based on your experiences, where you lived, your parents, your friends, your work experiences, all those things. And that's where a lot of personality tests are confusing, because someone
Mhm.
could be an extrovert in their 20s and then all of a sudden they take the same test and now they're an ambivert in their 30s, and it's like, this is my personality, this is not supposed to change.
Right.
And the Enneagram says, no, no, no. You have these defense mechanisms that you have used in your life in order to survive, good and bad. So when we say mechanisms and defense, it's not that it's completely negative, but you use these things in order to survive in your system. And that could
Mhm.
be for a positive survival or negative survival. So not necessarily a negative slant. And um, and pretty much that's what you are. Now, within the Enneagram, it's a very intricate system. We also have instincts. So there are, even though there's 9 different types, there are 3 different types within each number. So for example,
Mhm.
there are 3 different types of threes, 3 different types of twos, and all that. And even more so, the Enneagram gets deeper into talking about our centers of intelligence. So looking at, we have a head center for intelligence, we have a heart center, as well as our gut center. And we use all 3. We tend to have one that is more dominant than the other based upon where we fall within the Enneagram, but it doesn't mean that we ignore these. And so the idea with the Enneagram is that, hey, even though you are a 3, for example, you have a specific pathway to help you, to where if you're in a times of stress, you tend to take on more negative aspects of
Mm,
another number. And this is how you can recognize that and find a way to take on the more positive aspects, from another line. So to get at your question, so about one perspective and how a 2 can see it very differently than a 3. So, for example, a 3, we are considered the competitive achiever. So, what that means is that we are like the doers of the Enneagram. We get lots of things done. But the reason why we do so much is because we want to be seen as successful. Our
mm,
self-worth is derived from our successes. And part of that, when I think about and I reflect on my time as a child, and again, it's not that I had a horrible childhood or anything
right.
like that, but I
They
remember.
were doing the best they could with the tools
Right.
they had.
Right,
Yes.
right. And I remember, like, I was praised for doing well in
Hmm.
school, doing well in sports. And I would get that type of attention. And so then that would help bolster my self-confidence. And so I would do more of those things. And I would not put myself in situations that I could not be successful. And so
Mm.
that's a little bit of a drawback, right? When it comes to like risk taking as a entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, but within there, so like as a two, for example, your self-worth is can be derived from the love that you get back from others.
Right.
So, like you said, you tend to overdo things for people, expecting that same amount of attention and desire and love coming back to you. And you can
Mm-hmm.
get very disappointed and I wouldn't say passive aggressive, it could be, but disappointed that that person was unable to give you that same amount of attention that you gave them because to you it comes so easy. Like
Mm-hmm.
an example would be, let's just say a coworker or a friend of a friend, their loved one was had to have surgery for something. You as a two would send a card or send to that person or to that friend of a friend a free coffee or something like that just to
I
show.
would bake them cookies with
There you
really
go.
darling packaging and lots of ribbons. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is not a close friend. This is a friend of a friend,
Right.
right?
No. Yeah, exactly.
But you are showing them love and support, right? You don't even think twice about it. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
me, as a three, I would be like, oh, I hate that for them. Let me know if what I can do to help. But I wouldn't even think to send the cookies and stuff. Now, if it was a friend, a very close friend, absolutely.
Of
But
course.
it's not in my wheelhouse. I see it as, oh, prayers, hope they do well. But sending cookies or taking time out of my day to bake cookies and do all that, that's a no-go for me.
I'm an overachiever. I mean, an overfunctioner, not overachiever, overfunctioner.
Yeah. So, but
Yes.
that's how we take that situation. We both still
Mm-hmm.
have the same empathy, but the way in which that comes out, or
Yeah.
sympathy, the way that comes out is vastly different, right? But
Right.
also our, when I say our kryptonite, right,
Yeah.
can come out very differently. So the beauty of this is it helps tell us what our triggers are and
Mm-hmm.
what happens during those triggers and how to recognize them in the world. And it's almost we get out of the space of living in auto in default
Mm-hmm.
because these defense mechanisms that we created, they helped us survive and they got us
Right.
in really wonderful places. And we're so used to operating in that way that it doesn't serve us all the time. So now what we have to do is we have to see, okay, I'm being triggered by something. This makes sense based on who I am, right? So, what do I need to do to make sure I can bounce back quicker? Because it's not that you're going to get rid of this. And sometimes my clients think that, oh, if I just learn that on this, okay, I'll get rid of always worrying about something. And I'm like, no, 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 no. This is how you're built. So, the idea is you're going to recognize this quicker, and it's the idea of bouncing back quicker. So that way you don't go on this on the Enneagram, we talk about a continuum of healthy and unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want you in this unhealthy space all the time. And if you're always in the healthy space, you'll never get to see the difference and joys of the world because you have to have yin and yang, right? We always talk,
Right. Contrast.
you got
Right.
to have that contrast. And so but when you start to see yourself, you can recognize yourself going down that unhealthy continuum. How can I
Right.
bounce back quicker from that? And that's really where, and this is, I guess my Southern accent and my
Oh, yeah.
Southern mannerisms and sayings are getting ready to come in. The proof is in the pudding.
Right.
So the proof is in the pudding when you can actually take this information, you have someone to help guide you understand this, and now you know how to take action. Because you can read all
Right.
day long that you're a helper, you do this, this, and this. But how can you recognize that this is, ooh, yeah, this is the trigger? Give myself a little bit of grace. Okay, how
Mm-hmm.
do I move past this? Right.
Right, because it's really fascinating. I have two questions around this. And one statement is that these things are happening subconsciously. Like
Mhm.
our actions are, but I'm sure the listener was like, okay, it was a friend of a friend, Wendy. Like you're a busy person. You don't need to make cookies for every single person that you just because you know how to make cookies and I think they want to feel seen in this whatever. Like these are Perfectionism is a trauma response. Sometimes baking cookies for a total stranger is a trauma response. It's not, oh my gosh, you're amazing. It's the way, the road that I practiced the most to hear the words I needed to hear.
Mhm.
So this is not my healthy two
So,
baking the cookies for this person. And I want to hear what you have to say. And I have another question. So
uh,
go ahead.
well, I guess I would need more context to say whether if it was the healthy or unhealthy.
Right.
The way that you're describing it, and the way I kind of gave the scenario is that if you were baking the cookies in order to get the validation that you are a good, helpful, and sweet person, then yes, that would be more of the unhealthy.
Mhm.
However, if you were just baking them to say, I want to give this to you, but you were not expecting anything in return. And sometimes
Mhm.
it's hard to hear for twos because twos, even though they say they don't expect anything in return.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can't separate it anymore. I'm 57 years old. I don't even know why I'm doing it anymore, except for my cookies are really good.
Right. Well, if you're doing it in order to get feedback, to validate your action, if you don't care, if they just, you hand them and they say thank you, and you just are like, that's cool, I'm happy with that, that's healthy. But if
Hmm.
you're like, that person did not write me a thank you card, or I baked cookies for them and I did not even get a text, like that right there, then that might be someone on the unhealthy side. And we have to ask, were you expecting a response when you did this? And if you were, why was that important?
Hmm.
That's where the rubber meets the road. And it's like, well, it's more for me. And that's the whole idea behind ego when we hear about those different things. And how can we get to a point to where it's not a demotion or a strike against who we are as a person? Because in the end, it's like we do not need that validation from that person. Is it nice for someone to appreciate what we do?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But we shouldn't expect them to appreciate it the same way that we would expect it. So, for example, if someone, a friend of a friend, made you cookies and brought you cookies, oh my God, you would be like,
Right.
thank you so much. That is so sweet. You would send them cookies back on like a whole month later
Probably.
or something like that. Yes, because again, that's part of the beauty and the gift that you bring. So we just have to look at what are you, what's the intentionality,
Hmm.
intention behind what you're doing and the expectation.
Exactly.
And that's where the healthy versus the unhealthy can be.
Right. And I know this is like such a silly example,
It's true.
but it's fascinating because it gets a little shadowy in there sometimes. And like, okay. And we have these opportunities for self-reflection. If I've made any listener cookies and you didn't send me a thank you note, this is not my passive aggressive way of telling you. It's like, really, where do my habits
Mhm.
inform my inspired action? And when does my inspired action inform my habits? So, am I doing things just because that's what I think a kind person does? Like, we're women, so we're always overthinking this. But, and I don't mean to sound as I'm like, I don't really have, I don't think, that internal conversation. But what my question is, with regard, my secondary question with regard to the Enneagram is, in this personal work that we're doing, in this evolution, in this recognizing what's a little shadowy and is really not in service, I don't need to be a perfectionist. I don't need to have a trauma response because I'm not experiencing trauma right now, right? Like, how, so I'm doing this work, I'm becoming the highest version of myself, using the tools I have, gaining more. If I were to take the assessment that tells me my Enneagram number now, I'm not sure how to I would be, because I'm living a more empowered existence and I'm understanding more every day of my own agency and my own validation and how I'm the deliberate creator of my own experience and I don't need another person to validate the love in my life. So I don't like, does everyone that used to be a two and then they do this personal development work become an eight? Like what? I don't know what
Great
happens.
question. Great question. Okay. So, the idea of with the Enneagram is that sometimes people are like, I don't want to be put into a box. And I think Ian Morgan had pretty much said this idea of it's not that we're putting you into a box, we're identifying the box you're already in.
Yeah.
And so the thing is we are identifying who you are, right? And you're always going to be this. Now, there's one caveat here with the Enneagram. A lot of your listeners might start going and looking and doing these free tests. Again, these are great pieces of knowledge. However, take them with a grain of salt because a lot of your free Enneagram tests only do just you're this number. They don't talk about the instinct piece. So remember how
Mhm.
there's three different instincts within each number. So we have the three instincts, which are self-preservation, social, sexual, or what we call one-to-one. So, for example, a social two might look like an eight, right? So, for example, if you took a
Okay.
free Enneagram test, it might say that you're an eight, and you're like, but when we start to get into what's the motivation of why you do what you do, it
Yeah.
might be like, well, sometimes, but that's not truly who you are. You're more of
Got
a
it.
social too, which means you still have the same motivation of the self-worth and the love and all those pieces. However, your instinct or your subtype is what we call, and that's the social, sexual, or self-preservation. That shows up a little differently than a self-preservation two. Like a social
Got it.
two, for example, the reason why they look so much more like an eight is because they are wanting to do things for the good of the community, the good of the
Hmm.
group. So you tend to see these individuals be now anyone can be a leader, but you tend to see these individuals step up and advocate more for particular groups, and that can
Hmm.
seem eight-ish,
Got
right?
it.
Um,
Hmm.
so even though if you, as you go to your more higher self, right? Um, you're still going to be within the realm of being that too, because again, that's what motivates you. That's
Yeah.
your why. And your why is very different than my why and an eight's why, a nine's why, whatever it may be. So, however, you might be able to bounce back quicker than someone who hasn't done the work. So now
Hmm.
recognizing this, it's not that you're questioning every move that you make, but now you're like, ah, I'm doing this, and if someone doesn't return the favor like I think they should, no big deal, right?
Right.
It's a healthier type of two than someone that's like, well, fine, let's just be that way then.
Yeah. See if I make you cookies again. Right.
Exactly,
Right. Right.
exactly.
Right. A resentful two is no fun.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we
Okay.
all have shadow, like,
Hmm.
there's resentful competitive three, right?
Right.
And there's counter types. So remember, there's three different types within each number. There's a counter type within that number. So, for example, a self preservation three, which is what I am, I'm a counter type of a three. So, a lot of
Yeah.
people get confused and think that I am a two because of how I
Uh,
can be caring. And how it, but I can also appear a little eightish because I'm competitive, but I'm more
mhm.
competitive within myself. And I do
Mm.
not use a lot of emotion in my decision making. And it's not that I don't feel and it's not that I don't care. However, I see, and again, my perception, emotion in a negotiation or decision making as inefficient because
Right.
at three, I'm all about efficiency, productivity, and emotion gets you nothing. So we will put it to the side and we will handle this logically, rationally, and then we'll come back to the emotion. But then I'm too busy doing something else and don't come back to it.
Got it.
Which is very different than a more social three, right? So
Right.
it's a very in-depth system that it's cool to get a free Enneagram test to get
Yeah.
just a baseline. I always say treat it the free test, treat it like the Disney princess test on Facebook,
Right.
right? I mean, they're fun, they're interesting. They're going to give you maybe some nice little tidbits, but you need someone who is well versed in it, or you need a
Yes.
very good assessment and someone to make sure, because you can take a quantitative assessment and but you need someone to help do the qualitative piece, because there are
Exactly.
certain words and things that you say that can support what came out from the quantitative piece, but also you can question, and then that person who's trained can be like, well, let me ask a few more, and they can say, well, maybe we should reassess, or this is what I'm seeing. And,
Hmm.
and they can give you the proper strategies and the proper
Yeah.
suggestions. So you're on the right path. Um,
Right.
that's the biggest thing that I see with individuals who are like, "Oh, I love the Enneagram. I'm a 3." And then if I actually work with them, I'm like, "Mm-mm, no, you're not a 3." And here's
Right.
why. And they're like, "But I've been doing everything wrong." I'm like, "No, you haven't. It's just now you're more informed, right? Now
Exactly.
you're more informed, and now we know what we can actually do for you to actually help you move the needle in some way, shape, or form."
Oh, it's so helpful. Thank you so much for that. And I want you to be able to talk about whatever you want to talk about. I just think it's fascinating. I have spoken with people that are specialize in the Enneagram and people that specialize in human design. But I love that you're doing both and how that's connected for you. And it makes sense because it's how we're connected to ourselves. So, how did you come to that decision, or how did that happen?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that, because I had an
Mhm.
epiphany about this.
Yay.
So human design is more about our energy. It's more about like what we can sustain. It's really what we were born based upon our planetary alignment, all these other things. And what's interesting is that human design takes more of the born piece of psychology, right? The nature versus nurture. It takes on more of the nature piece. What I love with human design is that because it tells us our energy, it lets us know what works best for us based upon our profile, based upon where our different centers are, whether they're defined or undefined, all those pieces. Now, how the Enneagram comes in is that, for example, I'm a projector, okay?
Okay.
There's only 20% of
Thank
people.
you for accepting my invitation to come on the podcast.
Well, I'm supposed to wait for the invitation.
That's
That's
right.
authority. So when the invitation came, I was like, of course, yes, this is an
Yes.
assignment. So as a projector, there's only 20% in the world who are projectors. And we live in more of a generator society.
Mhm.
So I
I'm a
think,
generator.
okay, yes, yes. And so as a generator, I think, oh, what was the last time, that last statistic? Was it 60% of our society is generator? No, I think it's 70, somewhere,
Mm,
right? We're definitely over 50%. So don't quote me on the exact number, but I do know it's 20% for projectors. But anyways, because we have a generator society, projectors feel like they have to keep up, right?
right.
So this is where the Enneagram comes in, because these are the defense mechanisms that
Mhm.
we have created in order for survival. So this explains, one, I'm a projector. I can only expound so much energy at a time. I have to respect and rest and things like that. But when we have a generator society that's go, 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 in
Mhm.
order for me to stay relevant and to be successful, I've got to raise the energy. Well, that's out of alignment with what I am built for. So when we blend these, it's almost like the bridge of, this is my innate, what I'm born with, what it makes sense for my energy, how I can honor that. And this is what I've created in order to survive society. So I understand that I can't be go, 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 because if I continue of go, 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 like the 3, then I'm going to burn out. I'm going to overwhelm. I'm going to hit these really just unhealthy places. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Now I can know that what my strengths are as a 3, like being all these things, and also have strengths from human design. I can connect those two pieces. So when I work with clients, I can talk about my zones of genius. Yes, I have
Mhm.
zones of genius from the Enneagram, and my zones of genius are more specific too, based upon my channels. from human design. So, for example, my structuring channel. So, what I'm really good at with my clients is being able to take a bunch of different ideas and put it into a succinct plan, path to where they run with it. And that kind of explains a little bit how I'm bringing in the human design piece and the Enneagram.
Right.
I can take these two pieces and blend them to where it makes sense for people and it gives them that direction. So like purpose, like in
Right.
my book, Bridge the Purpose Gap, it's all about figuring out what your purpose is, utilizing the Enneagram, because it's almost like that somewhat North Star, right?
Mhm.
But there's also an energy piece that was somewhat missing from that first book. And that's where that human design can come in and really, so many ways, bridge the gap. I like
Right.
bridge for some reason.
Well, it's appropriate.
So, but that's how I use both of those tools. And I think it really just gives a more well-rounded, holistic approach, and holistic answer for my clients because it makes sense to them. It gives them the tools, but also the just the strategy, if you will, because I'm
Right.
all about strategy. It says, oh, this is my wheelhouse. This makes sense. Why? I can never explain when people ask, well, how can you do this? And you're like, I just do it, right?
Right.
It just comes natural, but you can't put words to it. Here, I can put words to it for them. So when they go into that, let's just say that interview or that potential promotion interview, or they are trying to figure out who their ideal clients are
Mhm.
and who should they attract that they know that they will create that transformation for.
Yeah.
This informs them, gives them, again, I love blueprints, gives them the blueprint and it gives them the playbook. So
Yeah.
it's not so hard that they have to fit, it doesn't take too long to figure out. So many times
Mhm.
I feel like if we had this information to begin with, it would lessen our time to get where we want to go. And
Totally.
that's the three in me, wanting to make efficiency for people.
Mhm.
So
And
that,
the projector in you being able to see the big picture and how things should work together or could work together in the most effective way.
yeah. And so that's what I just enjoy. Like I love when for example, when I work with entrepreneurs, I love breaking down their businesses and figuring out is it in alignment for themselves, and if there's a little misalignment, how can we get back in alignment with what types of clients are you attracting, what kind of messaging are you using? Now, am I a brand strategist? No, no. But what I can do is I can take the holistic picture of you and give you the pieces that you need in order to say, okay, this is the type of ideal client. I know if I attract this client, I will get them that transformation, right?
Mhm.
Or I know in my messaging and my marketing, this is my strength, this is my wheelhouse, this is how I can market to these individuals. So that way I'm confident about, yes, this is absolutely what I can do. Um, and then when we take the Enneagram is even more depth from there. So that's where like you're in that leadership position, small business owner, and you're scaling. How do you increase that impact even more? Right. And so, and that's where that more in-depth piece of the Enneagram comes in later on.
Yeah. Oh, it's so brilliant. Good job.
Thanks. It was an epiphany during one of my projector resting times. I was sitting out
Right.
by the pool and just listening to the water, and I was just thinking, and I was like, oh, here's how
Right.
next.
Which is just another vote that it's safe to rest. Because when we stop, when we quiet our minds, when we check in with ourselves, we can hear the whispers, and the whisper is always leading us where we want to go on the path of least resistance to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And you have to trust it. Sometimes we don't trust it because it doesn't come from the mind. We feel like it doesn't come
Right.
from the mind because it's a whisper, right? That was a
Hmm.
whisper. So we have to learn to trust it. Um,
Right.
and that took me a
Yeah.
little.
Well, I mean, it's taking us all as long as it takes. But yes, it is a practice. It's not one and done.
Mhm.
I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and in the course, it reads that the ego speaks first and the ego speaks loudest. So when we have that, you can't do that. That's ridiculous. You can't have that business or buy that chateau in France or do whatever thing that you feel like you're being called to. And so it can be I almost said scary, but I think it can just be unfamiliar
Yep.
and uncomfortable
Hmm.
to quiet your mind, to sit in silence, to sit.
Hmm.
There, I've I've only recently been able to say with feeling and presence, it is safe to be at rest without crying, because that concept feels foreign and profound to
Hmm.
me. And it's a beautiful invitation,
Hmm.
and we can all try it. But
Absolutely.
in this particular season, for me, it's fascinating. I grew up in California, and the seasons or changing of seasons were more of a decision that we made, not necessarily something that was happening outside. But now that I live in New England, winter, it's quiet. It looks like nothing's happening, but so much is happening. It's just under the surface, and reminding myself that this is an invitation to rest. It is safe to be at rest. And all of my good ideas come on the other side of rest. It's why I love my morning practice. It's why I love that happened at 4:45 in the morning right after rest. So it's not I don't have to be in a lack mindset that I'm going to miss out on what's meant for me if I just shut my eyes for a second or stop doing something or don't put 47 things on the calendar because I'm looking for validation and love by
Mhm.
appreciation of what I've done. It's all of the things. So, how are you finding that correlation between bridging the purpose gap and rest?
Yes. So absolute correlation. Part of what I talk about in the book, there's some different research studies that really, especially with college age students, because I'm a university professor as well. So um, a lot of college age students are having a hard time really truly figuring out what their purpose is
Mhm.
because they are so busy. And when we
Yeah.
say busy, they're inundated with, I got to take this class, and this class. And then after this semester, I'm doing this class. And then I'm going to graduate. And then it's like by the time they graduate, what degree did you get? What are you going to do? Right.
Mhm.
And it's a real big shock. But if you look at our society, right, we are inundated with constant information, like our cell phones, right? This is a
Mhm.
computer all in one. And think about how many emails you get a day, how many sales messages you get a day, um, notifications, right? Even think if you watch a little bit of TV, there's a ticker on the bottom that talks about scores or talks about these
Mhm.
things. And then, of course, there's a lot of neuroscience research that talks about the blue light, right? And what that is doing to our brain waves. So our bodies and our brains are not built for this type of light that is keeping us up longer. Um,
Mhm.
so we have horrible sleep habits, and it's rewiring the way that our brains think, and how we process things. And so it's becoming to where when we have silence or unbusyness, it's so foreign that we are in so many ways scared because our brains are like, what are you doing? Like, I need something to stimulate this.
Mhm.
Think about video games, right? And that's the reason why a lot of younger children love video games. It is the quick dopamine hit, right? And like, yeah, I'm a parent. I have two young children, and I wouldn't say a battle, but I have to be cognizant about what they're doing, how long they're on technology, and what type of games that they're playing because
Right.
those dopamine hits, because their brains can't fully, I won't say turn off because I'm not a neuroscientist, so I can't explain that piece, but it's the idea behind, because their brains are forming so quickly, they cannot distinguish differences and know when to stop. And like our brains as adults, we fully don't know when to stop because we are always on our phones. Um, However, we can consciously say, I'm going to put it down for a little bit. We can make,
Right. It's more conditioning for us that
right,
makes us think we can't stop, where them, their conditioning is being formed by an inanimate object.
right. And it's so funny. My son, he's 10, and it's funny. He's like, Mommy, why are teenagers so addicted to their phones?
They're just smaller iPads, friend.
I know. And that's what I had said. I was like, honey, your iPad is basically like a phone.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's funny, the innocence and how he is already seeing that. And
Yeah.
then when he's on his pad, I'm like, all right, time to get off, bud. But real quick, no.
Right.
I'm like, why are you so addicted to your iPad? And he's like,
I have
shit.
she just turned 12 and it's fascinating and also the types of things that they're being introduced to in games. She started telling me a story. I I don't play video games. I never did when I was a kid, so they don't interest me and I would have not um I guess I would have not allowed it, but her dad does and she's allowed to do it at his house. So anyway, she started this conversation with we were playing hide the body and I had it was like, what? Like what? What is what? Like how is that? What is that? She's like, oh, it's on Roblox. It's, it's not a big deal, mom. I'm like,
Like,
ah, it feels like a really big deal because just these concepts that
hey, buddy.
I mean, there's some like little kid 9-year-old game that's called Jailbreak. Like, okay, wait, why are we even in jail? Like, what is happening? And why are we breaking out? And why is this bad guy chasing you? And what is happening?
Right.
So, oh my gosh, I know that's a whole other show. And obviously, I'm a little triggered by this
Yeah.
information.
Yes. Yes, it is. And so when we talk about that purpose piece, is that we are so inundated and we are conditioned by being busy all the time that we live in in this default phase
Mhm.
until we finally reach a point, and that's what I mentioned at the very beginning about when we get a little bit older, we're just like, we're tired of this crap. There's got to be a
Mhm.
better way. And then we're like, oh, why didn't I pay attention to this when I was younger? Um, so part of it is to help open people's eyes, and that you can absolutely build a life and a career that you love. And we hear manifestation and all these things all the time.
Mhm.
And again, yes, there is a place for that in the Course of Miracles and all those things. And I want people to know is that you can build that. And part of that is knowing yourself,
Mhm.
understanding more about yourself, and having the right strategies that are for you, not for everybody else.
Yeah.
So, for example, I have an entrepreneur client who they had a business mentor, and that business mentor made 7 figures, told him how to do this, XYZ. And, my client didn't do, they followed everything exactly what that person told them to do,
Mhm.
and they didn't reach the 7 figures, like not even close. And they're like, I don't understand. I did everything they said that they told me to do. I said, their way worked for them. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean that that works for you. So
Right.
what we need to find out is what energizes you, what type of strategies and business model works for you, and what
Yeah.
exactly are your goals. Do you really want 7 figures, right?
Right.
If so, like, what does that mean? What does that look like? And if, for
Mhm.
example, if you're a projector in a certain way, like sometimes you have a hard time letting go of certain things and
Right.
you have to work to do that. Are you ready for that? And
Yeah.
sometimes you have to have those hard conversations, and you have to be not afraid as a to tell that to your client and be like, this is what you're built for, and this is the roadblocks, the challenges that are going to come up. Are you
Mhm.
ready to face those challenges? Are you
Right.
ready to say, that's you doing this? And they're like, thanks for pointing that out. I'm like, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
Right.
um, but that's the beauty, is that I think we are getting back to a point on a positive note in our society, that we're shifting to this more, when I say this individualized journey, we're
Mm.
starting to understand that everybody has their own journey,
Yeah.
and that is okay to have that own journey. And it's okay to really, it's almost stepping into this, oh, what was, not ultra feminine, but I lost my train of thought, but it's the idea behind the more feminine energy.
Yes, divine feminine.
Yeah, divine feminine. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't had
You're welcome.
coffee. I'm like, it's there. It's something.
It's okay.
The divine feminine. We're starting to shift more into this um, intuition,
Yeah.
right? And shifting into understanding more of ourselves, because that is where the first piece of love, because we're here on
Mhm.
this earth for to love one another in so many ways, but you can't love another person if you don't love yourself. And so how do
Right.
we start loving ourselves is by really understanding who we are, so that way we can know what are our gifts, what can we bring to this world, to where we feel like we are contributing not only for ourselves, but also create some type of impact for
Yeah.
someone or something. Now, it doesn't have to be Mother Teresa type of work, but it could be for somebody.
Right?
It could be just simply breaking a generational curse or
Yeah.
breaking a generational pattern, right?
Mhm.
So for example, me, one of my things I feel like has been one of my impacts or legacies in my family is breaking this generational pattern of constant arguing in the home. Like, I
Mm.
grew up with being afraid of conflict, right?
Mhm.
Because I saw it as very destructive because I saw what it was in my home. And I'm lucky enough to have been able to create and blessed enough to have a partner who um, we are just in sync. And our
Yeah.
children do not see us fight. And I tell them we have disagreements, absolutely, but we do them constructively.
Mhm.
I think it was even when we got married, my husband's brother, during his best man speech, said, I don't think I've ever seen you two fight. And I'm like, we don't. I mean, we have
Right.
disagreements, but it's not this cuss one another out, not, I mean,
Right.
because that was one thing I wanted to break.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's been done and continue.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, but I mean, like, that's part of my impact. Is there more impact? Absolutely.
For sure.
That's a small impact that now my kids get to take that into their
Yeah.
relationships, and they
Yeah.
know what's healthy and not healthy.
Yeah.
Whereas beforehand, it wasn't really talked about or it wasn't really acknowledged, right? But now it's acknowledged here. So at least my kids know what a partner should and should not be, right?
Mm. It's so beautiful. My gosh. I love the work that you're doing for your clients professionally and personally, and the reminder of what we already know of how intertwined all of that is. So,
Mhm.
thank you for your beautiful work in the world. Please tell everyone where they can find and follow you, how they can get their hands on the book, all the good things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. Like, it's been awesome. Like, I enjoy this, and I love the work that you're doing and putting,
Thank
different
you.
experts and people out there, because it's this nice to hear, but also have those action steps and things. So
Yes.
people can find me. Best place would be my website, brandystamper.com. And of course, you can purchase the book there, but also it's on Amazon. So it's Bridge the Purpose Gap. I have all the socials, traditional socials. I'm not into TikTok.
Yeah.
I can't take
Same.
it there. I have my Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, but that's about as far as I go. But something fun that is coming up down the pipe, I think that your listeners might be interested in, is a course that I am a small group, very intimate um, hybrid teaching course that I have coming up about building your business by design. So understanding
Mm,
human design type and creating a business based on who your ideal client would be, your messaging, and so forth. So you'll be able to find more of that on my website coming out. And so I'm really excited about that. And I'm hoping that'll help people just take some of the guesswork out of what business model to do and
right.
where to go in your business. So
Oh, it's lovely. Thank you so much. We'll link everything down in the show notes. But thank you so much for your time, Brandy. I've loved this conversation.
absolutely. Thank you, Wendy.